Hello! In this Friday Functions video, I'm going to talk to you about a few things related to updating CDS option sets. And this is going to be part of my new Lessons Learned playlist. Feel free to go there. As I build more and more model-driven apps and discover new things to save you time, I'm going to post them here as videos so that they will save you time and you won't have to figure it out. Okay, now some of you who have a background in dynamics won't need to look at this playlist and feel free to ignore it. But others of us that are kind of new to building solutions in dynamics might appreciate the series Lessons Learned that I'm posting. So I'm starting with updating the CDS option sets because option sets are to CDS what choice lists are to SharePoint. And I'm very familiar with using choice lists, but option sets are kind of a new realm for me this past 6 months or so. So I want to kind of break the problem down first that I ran into so that you can see what I did. Okay, so option sets. What I learned recently is that option sets have two things: display values and logical values. And at first I thought this was like columns in SharePoint where you have like the display column header versus the internal column header, but it's not at all that. It's something very uniquely different, and so I want to explain it to you. So when you build an option set in CDS, this is what you see. You see a little, a very easy to use panel where you can put the name of the option set. It will prefix it internally based on which instance you're in CDS. You can put a description of your option set, which I do recommend, even though you don't see one here for this sample. And then you have a choice of making it global or local. And I really love global because what that means is now I can use this option set in every single entity that I have, okay? So it is not just local to the entity I might have been creating when I got to this panel, right? It is actually going to be available for all the entities. Of course, all the entities in the environment that I'm in. So I love that. But then it gives you this really neat, sorry, how did I switch screen? Okay, then it gives you this really neat opportunity on the bottom in the items area. Just kind of try and point this out. Right down here, can you see my pen? Right down here, I can add all the options. And so I just type and hit enter, and it gives me a new line every time I hit enter. Or you can click add new item and you'll add these things. Now, what people usually do when they do this is they're just getting their option set done. It's easy, it's fast, but there's kind of a secret going on. And the secret is hiding under this ellipsis here, because this is what you see. And at the bottom of this screen is save. And most people just go straight to save and save. They made their option set, they gave it the values they want, and they're done. But in reality, if I click again here, you'll see that what you get, if you didn't do anything but just enter those strings, is you actually get a name, which is what your user will see when they're picking from this option set, but you also get a value. And these values that you see here, I just took the comma out because it's irrelevant. These values are what you have to use when you update that option set from Flow. Now, so let me just point out a couple of other things. If you build an app from data and you connect that app to CDS, the out-of-the-box form that updates to CDS is smart. It knows if you pick red that it should update the database with 124570000. But if you don't use the out-of-the-box form, and you place your controls on the screen in Power Apps, then you also have to pay attention to what I'm going to show you tonight. Because you also will have to, from Power Apps, make sure that the data is being updated. Whatever you might patch to CDS has to use the number and not the string, okay? So what you have to do really in both cases, without getting too geeky on you, is you need to create an array so that there's a way for you in your manual operations of patching or in your flow to say, hey, here's the string value that might have been read, and here's the literal value or the logical value that CDS needs. Now, this comes into play in many situations. Let's say your trigger is Microsoft Flow. And so, I mean, not Microsoft Flow, Microsoft Forms, F-O-R-M-S. In the form, you might ask them, what's your favorite color? Well, in forms, you can only provide string values or numeric values. You cannot provide a pair of values. So in forms, you will type red, blue, and green. But now, if you want to add that data to your CDS, you will not be able to use the token from the form because it will just be red if they picked red, blue if they picked blue, or green if they picked green. There is no way to translate that automatically to the number specific to this option set. Okay, so let me show you. Let's go to flow. With that understood, and if you didn't understand, rewind and play it again, right? But I'm going to go to flow now and kind of show you how this feels. All right, so basically before I, just finding my situation here. Okay, so here I am. I was in Power Apps first here, and that's because this is where I built my entity. So I built an entity called Colors Data. Just want to show you, I just built an entity. I named it Colors Data. And then I added a field, and I created a brand new option set called Favorite Colors, okay? Now, in order to kind of see your data well, I also suggest whenever you create an entity, also create a default view, which is edit your default view, which is active colors data, and edit your default form as well. This way you can, from the entity screen here in Power Apps, you can add a record, you can delete a record, you can view the records you've added without having to create an app. Right? So sometimes I do this. So I start by editing my active colors view, and I do it from here or do it from here so that I stay here in Power Apps in this beautiful UI that team put together. And it is so easy to use. I can just drag and drop. So like, watch, I'll remove this from this screen. I'll also remove the created on, and you'll see that whatever I removed is now over here. And I can change this to show me all, even the internal things, or I can just leave it default. And I can choose custom, which are the custom fields that I added, all right? So, and I can run searches from here to find fields. But when I want this field on this view, which is not the case by default because it's custom, I'm just gonna drag it over here and put it where I want it. So I did that. Let's drag it a little slower. Put it where I want it, and you can see now I have both of those here. Now at this point I can take this view and sort it any way I want. So I'm actually not going to sort it by name. I'm going to sort it by the create date. So I'm just going to go ahead and say sort by, so let me just add the created on. So I'm going to put everything back, get my created on, put that in the view so that I can sort by it. And now I'm going to sort by created on, all right? And delete the name because I don't want to sort by that. I also want it to be descending. So you notice this little up arrow? I'm going to make it descending. So now every time I add a new record, it's going to go to the top of my view, and it's going to have the name, the favorite color, and the respondent's name, okay? Now, what's interesting is you will notice sometimes we'll truncate here. So I can make this wider, so I can see the whole header. All of this is just really mouse friendly, right? No code or formulas needed to build these really easy views, okay? So now I have a view that I can use to kind of test my flow. I don't want to have to go in my data and stuff. I want to just be able to quickly check that my flow work, right? So I'm going to save this, and I specifically chose the active colors because that's the default view most of the time. But if you have people making apps, then go ahead and give yourself a view named flow view, right? And put the columns you need to test your flow. All right? Don't mess up anybody's views. But the reason I'm using the default is because I know nobody else is using this. This is just for me to do my Friday functions video. So be considerate. If somebody else is using active view, then make your own flow view for the testing of your flow. Now, in addition to creating, and then after you finish, you have to save it and publish it. Both actions in that order, save and publish. All right. Once you do that, go back with this back arrow that you saw, not the Explorer or the browser back, but the back that's right there on that view. And we're going to also edit the default form, which is the main form. Okay. Again, you can make your own form if you want to. I'm doing this because I know nobody's using this, so I'm safe updating my main form. And I'm going to use the edit form right here so I don't get taken to some older interface. I can use this really great one that the Power Apps team worked on. Now, by default, it will not include these fields that I have added. So let's see. Let's delete this one, and notice I'm just clicking and deleting. Oh, okay. In this case, I have the favorite colors are required, so that can't be deleted. But you can go ahead and add whatever you want. So I want to add the respondent's email. Put it wherever you want. Notice that that purple triangle was on the top with columns. It's on the left when it comes to the rows of a form. Okay. So now that I have everything in here, now I could also test by creating my own item. So I have now a form that contains everything. So if I save and then I publish, now I have a form I can play with as well. Okay, again, I want to use this back, not that back, to get back, not the browser back, to get back to my data. So now if I go to the data tab, if I'm going to look at all the records, you see how it defaults to active colors? Now you see the columns that I chose in my modifications to that view. And if I need to add a new one, if I click add record, it will now give me the form that I edited, the main default form. If I hadn't edited that form, and you didn't see this because I had already done it before you arrived, you would just get name and owner, and you wouldn't be able to update your data. Okay, but now I can easily add a new record to this. This just has to be a unique identifier. So let's just put a weird number in there and then save. Okay, so now we've added a new record. If I go back, hit OK, and refresh this screen, you will see that now I have 2 records. So that was probably more than you needed to know, or more than you already, or something that you already know. But I like to let people know this because when you're testing your flow, you really need to be able to kind of bounce back and forth to Power Apps and look at the CDS results so that you know you succeeded. All right, so I'm going to delete that fake record just because we don't need it. All right, and I'm going to go back to flow and again show you the problem here so that you completely understand what I'm solving for, which only takes a minute to show you. All right, so I have a button here that has an input called favorite color. And then I use the 3 dots over here to add a list of options. In this case, it's showing me remove because I've already added them. But this drop down is going to show them 3 colors. You need to make sure if you use a button or you use Microsoft Forms or you use SharePoint, no matter what your trigger data source is, make sure that the choices match your option set strings. All right, so you saw that my option set had red, green, blue. red, blue, green, that's all I can have in my data source that's triggering this. I can't have something else, right? Okay, because it'll fail, because I won't find it. All right. Now, you would assume that I can go in here, enter custom value, and dynamically select what they typed in favorite, what they chose in favorite color. But notice I cannot. And the reason I cannot is because I'm looking at this CDS action. By the way, side tip for those of you that actually listen to me all the way. Sometimes you will not get this action if you do not have a CDS database in the environment that your flow is in. So be sure that you're in your flow maker list is in the environment where the CDS database is for now. Okay. I have not been successful in many cases finding this action if there's no CDS database. Okay, so now I can't see, there's no dynamic content over here. And the reason is because what did I just teach you, right? The data in CDS is really behind the scenes a number. So flow is helping us here. It's saying there's no number, right? So you can't see it. Now I could get it out if I wanted to by doing an int expression. An int expression will translate a string into a number, and now I can see it, right? But you don't want to do that either. So don't make the assumption that you can use that int and then say okay, because this is going to create an error, because flow cannot convert red, blue, or green into a number that CDS will understand. So don't do that. Okay, you'll get an error. All right, and do you want me to prove that to you? So let's, even if I just say, no matter how I get that in there, right? So I can say int, then I go here, and then I go here, and I say okay, and now I run this. Sorry, I zoomed. So let's run this in test. It might be a good idea for you to see the error to underscore what's going on. Okay, there we go. We got an error as expected. And let's look at this error really close up, right? Unable to process template language expressions in action, create a new record, inputs at line 1 and column 2016. Okay, so that's good. They told us where it is. I'm going to go to the sentence that really matters. The template language function int was invoked with a parameter that is not valid. The value cannot be converted to the target type. So that's just the geeky way to say I can't turn red into a number. I can't actually turn it into a number that would be respected by CDS even if I could, right? Because flow doesn't know what that number should be, right? The closest thing I can do to get a string into a number is to count the letters using length. But that's not going to help us either, okay? So let me show you how you handle this so that you can continue to take advantage of the richness of the Common Data Service, because you don't want to miss out on all the richness in the Common Data Service because you need a number for your option set, okay? So I'm going to take you to a flow I created and walk you through what's happening here. So here you can see I have a flow called create record. Now I'm going to play that, and you'll see it starts the same way as the one I just showed you, and I can pick blue as my favorite color. I don't really have a favorite color, but I guess blue or orange would probably be close. I'm going to hit done, and if we click on this, you'll see that that succeeded. You see it succeeded. All these failures are me playing around with strings without numbers, but that one succeeded. If we go to Power Apps and we refresh our data for colors data, you'll see that our new item is at the top, because remember we sorted by created on, right? And it worked beautifully. So what did I do? How did I convert that number to a string? Let me quickly show you. So you remember in the flow, we had the favorite color being asked for, so I didn't change that. But I do add two variables right away. All right, let's start with the easy one. the variable for CDS. This is what I'm going to use to update the color option set in CDS and nothing else. Okay, so I'm going to have a variable called var update number. Okay, usually these are integers. Those of you that are dynamic SMEs, if you've seen decimal points and numbers, please let me know, because that would mean we'd need float, right? But in this case, these are whole numbers, and so I'm just going to choose integer as that number. It has no initial value. However, I have another array variable called var colors array, okay? And all I've done is put that array in this var colors array. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint for a minute. And over here on the right, you can kind of see this clearly. So arrays always start with open bracket, close bracket, and then each element of the array is in squigglies. And there's a key, which is the color, and then the value, and then the whatever you want to call the value, which I just called value, and that number. So I had to go find out what their number is. And there's two ways to do it. One, hit those three dots from CDS and look at the value in CDS in the option set. Or you could add one of them in Flow and then use peek code to look at what the number is in the back end. Either way. But once you know what the number is, you really do need to make yourself a little array that will serve as the data source for looking up the value. In Power Apps, I would create a collection, and the two columns would be color and value, so that I could look up the value for any color they might pick. All right. So now you can look at this, pause it, write it down. This is the kind of array. Depending on what your option set is, you at least need what you want to call the string and what you want to call that logical number for every element of your option set. So if your option set has 3 options, you need 3 elements. If your option set has 7, you'll need 7, okay? You have to have an element for each string in your option set. Okay, makes total sense to me. I'm hoping it makes total sense to you too. And then you'll put that into a variable called variable colors array, and you'll give it the type of array. Okay, so now we've stored a place to put our CDS number, and we've stored the array that Flow can look at to determine what the number should be. Now I will parse JSON right here on that array. And I, for the life of me, really can't figure out why I need to parse JSON, but after this variable comes out, I cannot actually filter the array. So if I try to filter the array, that's just that variable there. I'll just show you. It doesn't show me the columns, color, and value. Okay, again, if anybody has a comment on how that would be better done, put it down there at the bottom. But I could not get those 2 values to come out, so I did not use a filter array. Instead, I parsed JSON first and put the same exact array into my payload. So the exact same array that you put into the variable, the same thing. I hope I didn't click yes or something. Let me go back. I didn't mean to edit that by accident. All right. And you just paste that in there. Now, when you paste that in there, and I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit again. Notice that my variable is the array, the same one that you see in PowerPoint. It is really important that there not be quotes around the number. Let's check PowerPoint and make sure there's not quotes behind the number. So, I'm sorry, there's all kinds of places you're looking here. See, there's no quotes around the numbers. Really important, because if you have quotes around the numbers, guess what they become? They become strings, okay? So you want a string and a number value. So you got to make sure there's no quotes around this number. Now, what the schema gives you when you paste that into the schema, it adds something at the bottom here called a required section. And sometimes it will put the value as required as well. no. So if you see that, and let's see if I can repro that. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to change my payload here and just put that in there, okay? And say done. And yes, there it goes. So you see that when I put that payload in there, for some reason it adds a value requirement, and we don't have a value being requested in our data source at the top. So whether it be a button for Flow with a text, or it be a Microsoft Forms form, or a SharePoint list or whatever, they can't ask for the number value that CDS needs because they don't know it, right? So just delete that row. Literally, you can click in here, and I'll just try and click in here slowly, and delete this whole row right here, this whole line, and then the comma before it. Okay, just leave that, because the only thing that's required here is the color, and the color's coming from the button, right? All right, so that's just me being quite perfectionist to get that perfect. All right, so now we've got that. Now, as a result of parsing JSON, now I can filter my array. When I drop the body from the parse JSON, it works better than when I drop the body of the variable. It actually gave me in the parse JSON exactly what I asked for, which was color and value. It also gives me the entire object, the entire element, and it gives me the whole body, but I want color and value. So what I want to do is I want to filter this array where the color property is equal to what they selected in the button above. If this was Microsoft Forms, I would put the dynamic token for the forms question. If it was SharePoint, I would put the dynamic token for the column that has the color selection, okay? So really important to do this filter array first, because what it's going to result in is your ability to now update your variable. So now you can add the body of that filter array here. And I'm pretty sure this is the body of the filter array. Yes, it should be the body of the filter array. And now you add an action called set variable. You select the variable that you created up here. Update number variable. And it will only give you one that well, actually it'll give you all of them because this is a set. This is not an increment. This will give you all of them. You'll pick your var number, and then right here, I'll just kind of delete it so I can put it back again. If you scroll over here to the dynamic tokens, you'll notice that the filter array only has one value. And so guess what? That is the right value for what should go here. All right. So now what we're doing is we're setting our update number value to be the number and not the string. Okay. So now that we've done that, we're ready to update our record. Because now what we're going to put in favorite colors is that variable. Now I'm going to unselect that so I can show you a couple things here. I put a timestamp in for the name just to keep it unique, and the timestamp is from the button. It could have been from anything. Again, the data source is irrelevant where you're starting, what's triggering this. But just remember you need a unique value for the name. And then for the favorite colors value, what happens if you hit the X here is you get the list of all the values in CDS, which is a really nice experience, and you can go ahead and set it to blue if you want to. But I don't want to select blue because I want it to be what was entered by them, right? And I don't really want to send blue there because blue will not be understood by CDS as an update value. Because I'm in a field that is a number in CDS, actually, our filter array value is visible because we turned it into a value. But notice that your button does not show favorite color here. And that's because favorite color is a string, so it doesn't fit there, as I was explaining before. So just look for your filter array, and this is a number, so I can use it. All right, don't worry that it didn't apply to each. Let it do what it wants. It's not important because we only have one anyway, right? So now if I test this, let's test it again. Did I play around? Actually, I think what I did was I might have pulled this out because I don't agree that it should be in and then apply to each. But let's test it with it. Let it doing what it wants to do. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Okay, I did something wrong. So this would probably still work, but here's what I'm going to do differently to show you the right way to do this so that you'll do it the same way I originally did it. And I'm sure there's more than one way to do this, but I find this to be the simplest way. Because we've updated that variable, we don't need to use the filter array. Because that filter array, because it is an array, I don't need an array. I need the one answer. That's all I need. So I put it in a variable, and now I have one answer in my variable. So when I add that variable, update number, there's no apply to each because it's just got one number. So I would continuously update my variable if more things were needed to be done in this flow. But I'm good with this one record being created, all right? So I'm kind of glad you saw that happen so that you understand like what to do when in what situation. So let's test this, and I'm going to pick a different color. I think I haven't picked red yet. My mom used to love to see me dressed in red, so I can like red too. So I'm going to run the flow, and notice it finished successfully. If we go to Power Apps and refresh, we're all good to go. I know it even before the circle of hope stops spinning, okay? So I'm sharing this with you, especially if you're new to CDS. This is my lessons learned that I'm sharing with you so that you have those lessons learned and you don't have to figure it out because it took me a little bit longer than it took to build this video. So I'm wishing you the best experience, whether you're using CDS or SharePoint or whatever data sources you're using. And I'll be seeing you at the next Friday Functions video.